Hello there, and welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde. Today we're going to be talking about the need to cut spending in Idaho. Now, I know we have a DOGE task force, but does that necessarily mean it's going to happen? You probably know the answer as well as I do. We'll talk about it in just a moment.
All reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Once again, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about cutting government spending in Idaho. Now, you would think that would be a slam dunk. And for people who think conservatively, really it is a slam dunk. But for members of the political establishment, it's a pretty tough thing because a lot of their power comes from spending. So I want to share with you a commentary from Ron Nate, who is the president of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. He wrote a piece about how Idaho's DOGE task force misses it by that much. Wonderful reference, by the way, to get smart. But I want you to hear what Ron is pointing out here as the problem. Now, he starts with the question, maybe Idaho should implement a DOGE? Sure, but first, ask yourself this question. How would Trump's DOGE have been received if instead of appointing Elon Musk as its lead, he appointed a congressional DOGE committee headed by Mitt Romney and Mike Simpson with Chip Roy thrown in as a token conservative? You see the point here? That's kind of what we're seeing here in Idaho. Now, Ron asks, would President Trump get good results by appointing some of the very folks who voted for the bad laws and budgets in the first place? No, it doesn't make any sense to just put some of the biggest spenders in Congress in charge of the watchdog force. So Ron says to truly find and eliminate waste and government efficiency would require a third party, someone not in the legislature nor an executive branch agency, to honestly dig into the budgets, agencies, and their practices. In other words, someone like Musk. But that's not what we've got here in Idaho. Now, here's the good news. The Idaho Freedom Foundation, or IFF, has a record of doing just this for the last 16 years. And actually, they are more than eager to do more DOGE digging for Idaho. They've done the analyses, they've made the recommendations, they've offered their free advice, only to be largely ignored and maligned by the big spenders in the Capitol. In fact, Ron writes, in 2025 alone, the IFF Spending Index identified 53 problematic spending bills, which were ultimately passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. He says perhaps Idaho wouldn't be in this budget mess with an overbloated government if the IFF had been followed more closely. Now, the good news is it's never too late to make a change for the better. Look at the IFF Spending Index. Look at the budget analysis we do on every appropriations bill. But Ron says, look at our vast record of quality research. We have been happily doing DOGE since before DOGE was cool. So, to cut government waste, to reduce state spending, to set a standard for other states to follow, he says it's easy. Follow the leader, in this case, follow Trump, and make true DOGE a thing in Idaho. Set up a non-legislative task force, require a deep analysis of the department's efficiencies and waste, and then follow it up by cutting the waste and reducing the spending. He says other states are doing it. Idaho should too. But sadly, that's not what Idaho is doing. And the reason is nearly everything goes wrong when you leave it up to insider politicians. So Idaho House Speaker Mike Moyle and Senate Pro Tem Kelly Anthony thought DOGE bills in a DOGE committee would be easy wins. And you can see why. I mean, it's very, very popular at the national level, but it isn't so easy after all. Here's what Moyle and Anthony did. They championed two bills, both of which originated in the House, H-14 and H-364. Now, you've probably heard a little bit about H-364, but H-14, known as the Idaho Code Cleanup Act, was a bill requiring Idaho state agencies to review Idaho statutes related to their responsibilities and then report to the legislature any unnecessary or wasteful statutes in the code. The legislature can then draft bills to remove and revise Idaho laws to ensure that the state laws provided in Idaho Code are streamlined, up-to-date, essential for the citizens of Idaho, while best serving the public health, safety, and welfare. The second measure, H-364, is what establishes the Department of Government Efficiency Legislative Task Force for Idaho. Now, if anything was ripe for failure, it has to be something like setting up a government task force to find government waste. Ron says, or actually, this is a quote from the actual Bill H-364. The state of Idaho recognizes the importance of efficient and responsible government, or governance rather, to best serve the interests of Idaho's citizens. Therefore, a dedicated legislative task force is necessary to review agency functions, regulatory processes, and budget authority to uphold Idaho's commitment to effective governance. Well, it sounds great, but there are three big problems. And Ron breaks each one of these down. And this is not a case of, they don't deserve this power. Only I should have this power. This is a case of, will they actually do the job or not? So problem one, Ron says it's somewhat embarrassing, really, because H14 will fail for two reasons. First is the self-reporting mechanism. Asking state agencies to suggest increased efficiencies from their own agencies by recommending statute changes. It's kind of like asking mob bosses to suggest new laws to control cartels. You just aren't going to get any real results. Second, he says H14 has the same lack of enforcement problem as the infamous H96 flag bill, which had exactly zero penalties for violations by Idaho cities. Similarly, he says there are no penalties for agencies that fail to file such reports or submit reports that are pathetically insufficient or weak. So there's problem number one. Problem two is the bill set up Idaho's DOGE legislative task force passed the House, but like so many other bills, it died in Senate Chairman Guthrie's legislative drawer, his dead bill drawer. So there is no Idaho law to create and fund the DOGE task force. You understand? It didn't pass the Senate. There's no reason that it should be happening. Did that end it? Nope. In a classic case of we know better, Speaker Moyle and Senate Pro Tem Anthon appointed a DOGE task force nonetheless. And Ron says instead of addressing the inherent contradiction of appointing legislators to identify problems created by legislators and agencies, they created a task force with legislators as members. I mean, hopefully you can see the challenge here. Please, Mr. Fox, would you watch this hen house and tell us when the other foxes are getting hungry? Here's problem three. And this is one we talked about in the last episode when we were talking with IFF President Ron Nate. Take a look at who was put on that DOGE task force. 8 members, 4 from each chamber, save one. These are some of the biggest spenders in the Idaho legislature, with the exception of Representative Heather Scott. The other 7 scored an F on the Idaho Freedom Foundation's spending index. Okay, this is not a personality conflict. This means that they voted for bills that expanded the cost of government or expanded the size of government. So, talking about solutions, Ron says the leaders assembled a DOGE task force by assembling some of the most profligate spenders, including one who scored 0 on the spending index, meaning voting 100% of the time for every wasteful budget bill. The average of the task force's spending indexes is 35.5%. Okay, if that was your kid's GPA or your kid's, grade, would you be happy with that? Oh, well, it's close enough. Not really. Meaning, on average, those legislators vote for big spending a full 64% of the time. Again, 7 of the 8 have failing grades on the spending index. And what that shows is that these legislative picks show that they aren't really serious about cutting spending and restoring efficiency with this task force. So that puts the onus back on you and me as citizens to get more involved and to make sure that they know we're watching, we're paying attention, and not going to take pat answers by any stretch. Ron concludes by saying, look, we at the Idaho Freedom Foundation are eager and happy to offer our help and expert budgeting advice to truly return Idaho's government to efficiency and responsibility. And we've been analyzing and researching Idaho budgets and bills for over 15 years. We have experts such as Fred Birnbaum, Senior Policy Advisor, Sam Lair, Legislative Affairs Director and PhD candidate from Hillsdale, and Rachel Hazlip, Policy Director, MAPP from Liberty University. The point being, we have analysis, answers, and solutions. And when you ask, who does the Idaho Freedom Foundation work for? They work for you, the citizen. Not for the Senate President Pro Tem, not for the House Speaker, not for the governor. So if you're serious about seeing spending cut, make sure that you're, number one, doing your part to stay informed. Again, the IFF spending index Great way to see which of those budgets are actually moving government in the right direction and which are moving it deeper into red ink territory. And of course, if you're looking for those who are on your side and fighting for you, well, that would be your friends and the analysts and workers at the Idaho Freedom Foundation. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
All reporters are biased. The Idaho Press Club are biased. All media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not